Let's welcome to the show, Nick Gray. What's up? Look, Nick Gray over there and Nick Gray over here.
When did you make that shirt, by the way?
I forgot. I just made it randomly on canva.com. And I saw this funny photo of you and I was like, I need to get that on a shirt. And I use Canva all the time. I use the magic background eraser tool.
Yeah.
And they're like, for $20, just turn it into a shirt. A couple clicks and then this thing showed up. And how many times have I used this over the years?
You've used it a lot, and it's very genius. I think if you're watching this, you should do what Neville did. Make more shirts for your friends because it is so impactful. And I remember when you first did that, I was blown away. I was so impressed. And it costs you $20, $30, whatever it is.
$20, $5 shipping. I mean, yeah, it's like the best gift ever. What can you buy for $25? That's better than this.
Right?
And I've worn it so many places and like we'll go to like one of your meetups.
Yeah.
And people will be like, how do you have a Nick Gray shirt? Like people can't believe that you have a shirt with someone's face on it. It's so funny.
It's a super flex, and I think if you're going to something, to a party or to a concert or to a podcast meetup or something, this would be a really neat way that if someone had read my book and I didn't know them and they showed up with a shirt, like they would immediately stick out.
Yeah.
Which brings the next question. Do you think I should make a shirt like that when I go on a first date?
If you want the first date to run for their lives. Could you imagine if you showed up on a first date with their face on a shirt, which means this was premeditated. No one accidentally has a shirt at the last moment.
Right, but it's also a first date. It's a first date. So you've planned it. You've thought it through. You've hopefully talked on the phone beforehand or something.
I think you should do it just for the laughs. Sounds like a Nick Gray thing.
This is a great prank. This is a good little thing to do. I could mic it up.
What's a restraining order?
Yeah.
Well, what's the big deal? You just stay away from one person. So you know where this started from? I started doing it with Noah originally. And I think one time we recorded a video and I wanted to write Noah Kagan sucks or like something funny, right? And I was like, how do you make a shirt? And so I went online, it's like, how do you make a shirt? And you could buy these like printing kits.
Yeah.
So it's like special print paper that you put in an inkjet and then you iron on a shirt.
Yes.
So I would ruin a good shirt, like just a blank shirt.
Yeah.
I would print it on inkjet, which just, pictures on an inkjet are like whatever.
Yeah.
And then you iron it on and it's of very so questionable quality.
Yeah.
It looks like crap.
Yeah.
And then it goes through the wash 2-3 times, it's done.
Right.
Whereas this canvas shirt has lasted forever.
It's pretty impressive.
Best $25 ever.
It's very, very impressive. I remember I made shirts in high school for me and some of my guy friends that said Beaver Patrol.
It's like a Buc-ee's type thing.
It's like a Buc-ee's type thing. And we all wore them around. It was a funny little
Wait, what was the beaver joke?
It was just, it was like similar to a Buc-ee's sort of situation. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shirts, huh? Who thought? Yeah. So I have a couple of these and I use them all the time. So buy shirts with your friends' faces on it, and it's really funny.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, back to my intro. So Nick Gray, probably by far the most interesting person I've ever met. I was at dinner with a couple of people. Patrick Campbell was there, and we randomly brought you up. He's like, I'm so glad Nick Gray exists.
Really?
Yeah. He said that in this like a totally loving way. And I feel the same way.
Wow. Thank you.
But also, so I think a lot of people don't know that you also started a company called MuseumHack, which you eventually sold, which was like a pretty big, millions of dollars company. You were also part, and this people really don't know, a flight display system. So I think your family had an aviation company. Your dad started it in the 2000s.
Yeah.
And then you helped build that. And then you sold it to a private equity company.
It's so crazy because it was a huge part of my life in my 20s, and I dressed and looked very differently. And I just have this other like secret life that I lived. I mean, I lived going to trade shows. My dad built the company out of the basement of our house. I was on all these private jets. I joke that I've been on more private jets than anybody else, but they're always broken. And I'm like in there like fixing them or something.
But you have an encyclopedic knowledge of private jets. I remember I got a ride. I didn't pay for it, but like someone else bought a ride on a private jet, and I was on it, and I just lightly described what it was, and you just named it. And I was like,
I used to have a much better memory of the planes, but I do know a lot more about private jets than I think most people do. And it was because I worked in this business. My dad started it in the basement of our house. He is the very much like mad scientist type entrepreneur guy. Mm-hmm. Always having these crazy ideas when I was growing up, trying to make a better life for our family. Mm-hmm. And then he started a company when I was in high school that I joined after college, where it was really just him in the basement trying to build these products. Mm-hmm. And I helped him hire his first employee. And then my mom joined, and I worked with the company after college. And
so you were on the ground floor of it.
On the ground floor.
I didn't know that. I thought you like joined when it was larger for some reason.
Yeah, it was tiny. Like I was making the website for him when I was in college. And helping him with a lot of different things. But it was really his idea. I want to be clear that like all the ideas for the products and the business and the industry was him. I just happen to have a unique skill set in marketing that I think helped take this really basement business and make it look like a bigger thing. And that helped to grow it a lot. And eventually, yeah, we grew it to 80 plus employees, huge, very large. I mean, this was like engineers and manufacturing, and I was doing tons of travel around the world. And then we sold that to a private equity company in 2014.
Was that like a life-changing type of thing?
It was definitely a life-changing type.
Like for the whole family plus you as well?
Not for me at the time. I mean, I got an earnout eventually, but at the time, it wasn't a life-changing thing for me.
Really? Oh, it seems like it would have been if it was like, because you were like the first employee, right?
You know, with family businesses, and I mean, that did end up eventually changing my life, but it's not like, with a family business, there's a lot of like handshake. There was never like my dad saying like, okay, you're going to get 15% of this business. Uh-huh. It was, you know, it's just an understand, like I'm helping the family, I'm doing this. I know in the long run, like I'll be handled and sort of taken care of. But I remember there was a little bit of money that I got when we sold the business, but I didn't really think about that. It was just like in a brokerage account, and it just didn't really affect my life. I didn't really think about it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wait. So working with family, this can be often a stressful situation. How was it for you?
I think it was great. I mean, I didn't have a huge relationship with my parents before we worked together. I went away to college and I wasn't very close to them, to be honest. And then I came back after college. I tried to start a software company in college, and I like moved to India after I graduate, trying to start a business over there. That was a terrible failure. I came home not sure what to do, and I started to help my parents out. I thought I'd help them for a few days or a few weeks, and that turned into a few months, few years. And now I have like a really good relationship with my parents. We're super close together. I don't think I would have had that if we didn't work together.
Wow, this is like the opposite of what most people talk about. I think like Gary Vaynerchuk always talks about working with his dad, and there's a lot of these like clashes. I have some family friends that, you know, have that, and there's the, you know, like different generations kind of butt heads, but for you, it sounded like an overall like very positive experience.
We definitely butted heads and had some hilarious arguments that were very uncomfortable for other people, but it did make me a lot closer to them in the end.
What about, so what was like your involvement with it? I was always confused about this. Like, I know were you just like a jack of all trades? It sounds like you did the website, you kind of helped with marketing here and there.
Really marketing and hiring and international sales. International sales was just kind of a nice thing that I got to do, but that was my fiefdom. And so within the business, my dad was like new products and engineering. My mom was really like finance, CFO, and mine was really hiring and marketing.
Wait, how did you get into international? So you're just like on the phone with some Saudi Arabian prince being like fixing his jet, or like what?
Literally sometimes like that. Some of the craziest requests, you know, the Saudis have more money, and not just the Saudis, but folks in the Middle East have just absolute insane private jets with some of these requests that they have for things inside that you have to understand. Things are being engineered and built to fly in the air. Yeah. And so someone will have some sort of a request. Let's just take a simple example like a shower. You want to have a shower. That is very complicated. Water is insanely heavy, and managing all of this, there was someone who had a request for like very white, translucent floors, like almost like glowing floors, like you'd see like in an Apple store or something. And I remember getting calls from people being like, can you guys make the like LED lights for these white floors? And we're just being like, this is going to cost like $100,000. Like, are you sure you want this? Like, we don't care. Like, money doesn't matter. Like, we just have to build this floor. It's like insane. There's like blank check stuff that we can't even imagine.
So the company was basically like people wanted something in the private jet, you would just engineer and build it.
Yeah, the company was a lot of in-flight entertainment equipment for private jets. You know that map that shows you where the plane flies across the country?
Yeah, the raw dogging map.
The raw dogging map, exactly. My dad figured out that he could make that map for small jets. So think about small planes like the one you flew on recently. Back in the 90s, if you wanted that map for a small jet, you had to buy the same one that Delta Airlines bought. Huge box from a company called Rockwell Collins. And my dad was like, oh, I think I can take this Windows software and this little computer and I can like build a version of that for small jets. And so what used to be a $70,000 box, he was able to figure out how to make for like $10,000 or $15,000. And then he built a business around that with a lot of different products.
Where did you get most of the sales from? I imagine this was like conferences and stuff like that.
A lot, dude. A very much like a good old boy network that still exists of dealer networks, trade shows. My 20s revolved around this annual trade show that within our family was like the trade shows called NBAA, National Business Aviation Association. Mm-hmm. That was like the big deal within our family. It's like, oh, no, we can't do that. That's NBAA. Oh, no. NBAA is leading up to that. It was like this big trade show, huge amount of stress, big buildup, especially for my team because I was marketing. Uh-huh. And so building our trade show booth, I'll give you one example of something I did. Within this industry, talking about prices was seen as very uncouth. You wouldn't talk about prices. You wouldn't, here's the price. We did Best Buy style price tags on all of our products one year.
Like the yellow.
The huge yellow tag at a trade show. And so people, all these good old boy sort of industry turning up their nose, literally making fun of us in front of other people. And yet our booth was flooded with end customers. And so the end customers would come, they'd see how much it is. And they're like, yeah, why is this other one 70,000? This one's 15. They start to ask the questions. They start to ask the dealers to buy our products. And it was a total game changer that we were the first ones to advertise prices, to talk about prices inside this industry that was very super chill, I guess.
Were you really good at the trade shows? Just because knowing you, I assume that you would be pretty damn good at this, actually.
I think there were just certain marketing things. I mean, I learned so much from my dad and from our sales guy. Our sales guy was this guy, very salt of the earth, old. He was probably 60 or 70 years old. He was the type of guy, once I saw him do this, and it's where I came up with this love of name tags, sort of. At these trade shows, you have these name badges that everybody has. This is a small example, but one time somebody walked up to us and their badge was flipped over and he couldn't see what their name was. Now, how would I handle that? I wouldn't say anything. I would ask, maybe I would say something, whatever. This guy stops. He goes, hold on. Wait, what? And he squints at the guy and he reaches out and he grabs his name badge and he flips it around and he picks it up and he looks at it. And then he starts to kind of talk to the guy, right? That directness was something that I learned so much from, of just like picking up the phone, calling people, be very upfront so you can help and serve them in the business. It completely blew my mind, and that guy was a huge mentor for me.
Interesting. Did you do name tags and things like that? Is that where that kind of evolved?
No, I guess that came out later, but that story for me just really exemplifies his directness and not being afraid to be very upfront with people and say, like, what do you need? What are you looking for? How much do you want to spend? Okay, let me know exactly what's going on. And now I'm going to build a solution for you. And I'll tell you the best thing. Here's exactly what you need to know. Not this old way of sales, which is like, how you doing? Where you from? Let me do this, wine and dine, and then sell them some substandard product. We were very much like by the bones, bare bones products, great service, great support.
Do you still think conferences are the best way to get leads? Do you still think that's, I guess it depends on the industry.
I love trade shows. I've thought about creating a trade show business. Have you heard Sam Parr speak about how conferences are a tough business, but trade shows are a really interesting business because you make so much money from the vendors who have to buy the booths, and you can almost make back everything from just selling the space to them, right?
From just a couple of them.
Yeah.
Like 2 or 3 might pay your whole thing.
Yeah, right? And so now I think our generation is much less tuned into trade shows. When's the last time you ever went to a trade show?
Actually, with you.
With us,
HubSpot,
right?
HubSpot. That was actually not, I think that was September or something like that. Not too long ago.
But that was a HubSpot official conference. I don't know if I would call that a trade show.
Fair.
A trade show would be where HubSpot would be one of the vendors there. And so maybe one of your questions, I think, is would I ever start another business? I've considered, like, if I had to, if somebody put a gun to my head to start another business, I think a trade show business would probably be in the top 5.
Yeah, because you threw a birthday conference for your birthday. You've done this several times. So you're good at planning that kind of stuff. But you're right, the economics of a conference are not good. You charge people $1,000, $2,000, and like you break even. Like it's so expensive to throw those things.
Dude, I was so bummed about that. I asked people, how much would you pay for this experience? Because I thought I threw the best conference ever.
For your Nick 42 birthday?
Yeah, for my Nick 42. I thought I threw the best conference ever that I like killed myself over. That was very hard for me to do. And maybe because I anchored the price in a different way, like I thought in my mind, I pay for those experiences. If you hosted that and you did the same thing that I did, I would pay $5,000 for that. I love that type of stuff. But I sent out a survey to people. I was like, how much would you pay for this if I did it again next year? I was a little bummed. A lot of people were like, oh, $1,000 or something like that. Very hard to make an event like that work.
I bet I put $1,000. I was just thinking, for some reason in my mind, it just goes to 1,000.
Yes.
And I can't like put more than that.
Yeah, right.
Like I would never put $8,000.
Right.
It just wouldn't even be, Right. Also on a survey, it's like, what would you pay? I'm like, here's what I want to pay.
Yes.
I don't want to pay $2,000.
Yes.
But 1,000 would be like, sure, cool, do it. But then like 2,000 would be like, right. 3,000. Once again, you like question it a little bit.
Which is really hard because an event like that, thankfully I got the venue space for free because it was a community event. But those events, the reality is they're very, very expensive to do. And you need to have the corporate sponsors. That's how all the people who host events make money, is by having sponsors. Mm-hmm. And I've just never wanted to do sponsors.
Huh. Yeah. I remember when we went to the trade show, I was talking with, I had talked with a couple of the HubSpot employees just for kind of like coordination and all that kind of stuff. And other people we knew online, like Jay Klaus was a person I met over there, and I just talked to him online a couple of times, did a podcast together. But there's nothing like meeting in person stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's just better.
Yeah.
Like no Zoom, no email, no text, no phone call is as good as an in-person meeting. There is something still very different about that.
And we even walked around looking at some of the booths. Do you remember this? And it's like, oh, what's this video company? What's this? You saw someone there who you work with.
Yeah, Wistia, Chris Savage. And I remember him just recording, and I was like, oh yeah, like I've like spoke with this guy a couple times, and I've paid tens of thousands of dollars to his company. I'm like, there he is.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of neat to see these companies and these businesses that we interact with online through a screen. So I do think that that is a business that if somebody were able to do a trade show for our world, it could be kind of cool. I think it'd be neat with booths and things like that. It's a way for you to have a lot of meetings real fast. And
by the way, remember, so speaking of that, sorry to bring this back, but that Chris Savage guy, we saw him, he was recording, and you went up to him and be like, hey, my friend uses your company.
Yeah.
And it kind of felt like that How I Met Your Mother thing where it's like, have you met Ted? And I was like, hi. I don't know what to say to you. And they're like, sorry, we're recording. But then he reached out when he was in Austin a few weeks later, and we had lunch.
No way.
And it's because we met in person. Like there's something, and even briefly, and like while we interrupted him recording or something, it was just that brief moment that there's something like, oh, we have met before.
Yes.
There's something about it. So I'm really bullish on it. Also, our friend Sam Parr used to throw conferences like HustleCon.
Yes.
And the thing is, I remember in the 2000s when I was young, going to conferences. It was the only way you can hear cool people speak. There was no YouTube in its current form. There was no long form videos. There was no like cool videos of like Warren Buffett speaking to Charlie Munger for 5 hours. It just didn't exist.
Yeah.
So to hear it, you had to go in person. Then the emergence of the internet, podcasts, YouTube, et cetera, made it to where like instead of hearing the founder of WeWork talk on stage for 45 minutes, I could hear him talk for 3 hours edited down to 20 minutes on Planet Money or something, and hear a better version of whatever his speech is. Like no matter how good his speech is in person, it's going to be better when someone spends 10 hours editing it.
Yeah.
And so I remember going to some of these conferences and being like, I've already researched all these speakers. I've already listened to their I know everything they're saying.
Right.
I know everything they're saying.
Yeah.
I don't really care about this anymore. So I would actually go and hang out in the hallways and just chat with people at the conference. That was where the money was to me.
Yes.
Listening to someone give a speech in a room of people that I could just listen to online is just like kind of silly almost at this point.
We had an experience at that same conference, I won't say names, but where they had some very big name people speaking on stage, and it was frankly a dud. And they were saying the same things that we've heard in the podcast, but it just wasn't as good. There's an irony, though, that for conferences, you need those big names to get the attendance and the ticket sales. Because imagine I'm trying to sell you on a conference. I'm like, imagine the hallway conversations that you will have.
Yeah.
That's just like not a sell. Versus if I'm like, meet Sam Parr. And like some huge thing, and then people want to come for those names. So there's a weird mismatch between what you need to do to sell the tickets and get people to show up and where the actual value is. But I also think about these motivational speakers who used to speak at these like sales conferences and stuff, just like you said, before 2009, 14, you couldn't see those speeches anywhere but in person. And now with the benefit of TEDx, which we have to give them massive credit, and all these other online video platforms and podcasts, that stuff, the live sort of in-person scripted speech just doesn't carry the same weight.
I could just look at that stuff anytime on my AirPods, just walking down the street.
Yeah.
Awesome with cool background music and clips and stuff like that. Yeah, it's great. Here's an interesting thing. I went to a conference called Summit at Sea, which is they get like 3,000 entrepreneurs or something on a boat. Like, like they rent out an entire cruise ship, really hammed it up. And I went the last year they did it. I think they've done it again since. I did. It was 2016, and they stopped doing it.
I heard about that year, by the way.
It was a good year apparently, because apparently one year there was like a hurricane and everyone got seasick, and it was a whole thing. But it was the last time they did it. I think it's just so much problem throwing a conference where everyone's international and you're going to international waters. Like just having passports for 3,000 people alone must be just like a gigantic nightmare. But I remember what was cool about it. Eric Schmidt was there, Gary Vaynerchuk, all like Wiz Khalifa or Travis, all these like rappers, and Quentin Tarantino was there. It's just like star-studded, right? But here's the thing. We're on a boat. They can't get off.
Right.
So you just see Eric Schmidt walking around the hallway.
Yeah.
Or me and Nomadic Matt shared a room. And LeVar Burton, remember the guy from Reading Rainbow and the guy from Star Trek? That was apparently like one of his like big idols. And he was just like on our hallway. Like his room was a few doors down from us. And you see Quentin Tarantino just walking around. He's like grabbing lunch with you.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of cool because you got to see the speeches. Who gives a crap, right? This is still in the era where we could just see all their speeches online. But you got to hang out and interact with them. That was the important part. So I think any sort of modern conference will have to do a lot of like that, kind of like the speaker is there and interacting with you type of thing. Otherwise, it's like, who cares to just see like a speech anymore? It feels like very antiquated now.
A lot of my famous friends, if they're speaking at a conference, they will request not to stay in the same hotel because of obvious reasons. They just get mobbed. They go to the gym. They can't work out. Everybody's looking at them or snapping pictures, or they're trying to wake up in the morning and go walk down for a cup of coffee at Starbucks, and people want to chat them up. And so it's interesting that they did that.
Well,
I have a lot of respect.
They also held that same conference the following year in LA. But then like if Quentin Tarantino goes to the conference, he could just like retreat back to his awesome mansion in the hills.
Yeah.
Well, of course he would.
Yeah.
Instead of staying at the conference. I will say, random side note, one person that totally lived up to their name on this boat, and I am talking from like 7 a.m, looking roughed up, drinking all night, till 3 o'clock in the morning, like was talking to people, people wanted to talk to him and stuff like that. And he was giving them advice, holding court, just a crowd of people around him the entire time, the whole goddamn time. I'm not kidding. Can you guess who I'm talking about?
I think I know.
It's Gary Vaynerchuk.
Oh, Gary Vaynerchuk, really?
Dude, I couldn't believe how much effort he put into talking to people. Like, I guess the small folk, I don't know what you want to call it, but he was like the guy. And he was at like really the height of his, I don't know about the height of his fame, but like he was super popular.
Wow.
And people were like, dude, I would love to like tell you an idea. He's like, yeah, let's talk about it. And then other people would do it. And then of course it bundles.
Wow.
And I just saw this guy mobbed at all times and just totally giving the whole freaking time.
Really?
He was up in the morning. I remember my buddy Mickey and Gary Vaynerchuk sat on the ground like just in the like this living room area and chatted for 45 minutes, just answering questions, just rapid fire. We're just like so happy he was talking to us, and he was so fine with it. And then you just the whole time, and I just remember being like, oh, that's why I think this is part of why he's popular.
Yes,
like because I forever had this happened like 10 years ago, whatever, and I still like tell this story to every single person I meet about him. I'm like, that guy's the real deal.
That's so
all because he
cool.
spent a couple minutes talking to me.
That's amazing. I have so much respect from that, knowing that I have like a 1/1,000,000th of that sense that sometimes it can be exhausting. I mean, you're just on all the time.
Absolutely.
And so I have so much respect for him.
All day long he was doing it. And I was just like, wow, respect, man. Just like he really
Have I talked to you about his guy Nick on his team?
No.
Dude, here's the level that Gary's at now. And I don't think most people know this. He has this guy whose name is Nick Dio, who's on his team. He gives this guy, Nick Dio, a multi-million-dollar budget every year to take people out to dinner, take them on vacations, just to interact with them on Gary's behalf. And Nick will say something like, hey, would love to take you out to dinner. Gary can't make it tonight, but would love to just bring you out on his behalf. You don't pay for anything. And I heard about this from a very famous YouTuber who said, yeah, we were flown out to the Hamptons, put up in an amazing hotel, everything. Nick hosted us all weekend. Gary showed up maybe for 10 minutes, but Nick is like the guy who keeps all this rising talent just in the good graces and supports with wanting nothing in return, but just kind of in the world and in the orbit.
Dude, he's so good at that. I remember Gary Vaynerchuk said, like, some CEO was just like, what's the ROI of the social media? And it's really hard to tell. And he goes, what's the ROI of your mother that raised you? Like, put a number on it. Do it. Put a number on it. And the guy was like, okay, I get it. Like, it's there is an ROI, but you can't like exactly target the number. Yeah. That's super cool. Dude, I got so many questions for you here. Here's another thing. People don't know much about your past. I think people know something about this, but not much. MuseumHack. You used to live in New York, and I think that can you explain what MuseumHack is? I do better than I can.
MuseumHack was really my big business, and at the time, it was the thing that I was the most famous for. And in my 20s, if I did my family business, my 30s was really about this company called MuseumHack, that we did renegade museum tours at some of the biggest, best museums. Have you been on a tour with me, actually?
I never did a tour, but I know people who've got like proposed to at your tours.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, and you've given me some cool ideas for museums that have really helped too.
This was a business I started simply from a hobby. So just like I host events or I have weird hobbies now, MuseumHack started out of that. That was literally just me wanting to go to the museum and run around with my friends and show them cool stuff I found. These were not like art history tours where I'm showing, the narrative arc of Renaissance painting. This was basically 10 cool things I found and 3 things I want to steal, right? Like the good stuff at the museum. I learned all this just by going to the museum again and again. It became my third place because when I worked for my family business, I just worked out of my house. So I was just like cooped up all day, all night. I didn't get out at all. And the museum became a space for me to just go out and escape. And I was like, I think I moved to New York for cool places like this with art and like history. So I want to dive into this. I would look things up on Wikipedia, on YouTube. I'd do my own research. I'd make friends with the curators, go out for drinks with them, learn the juicy gossip. And then I would tell my friends the stories that I had heard. It became a very popular thing in New York City. One blog, this old blog back in the day called Daily Candy. I don't know if you remember this. Daily Candy wrote about it one time and said, the best thing to do in New York City is Nick Gray's MuseumHack tours. Literally overnight, that changed my whole life.
Wait, this was like people were coming, you were the only guy.
I was the only guide. It was just something I did for fun. It was word of mouth. It just kind of like was shared amongst friends. I did every Friday, Saturday night, but only if you knew me or knew one of my friends.
Were people paying you?
At the time, they didn't pay me anything for it. It was just like, you got to know me to come in. There was a little sign-up form online, but you kind of had to know me. Daily Candy wrote about it and said it was the best thing to do in New York City right now. And literally overnight, 1,300 people sent me an email, wanting to join these tours, and it just spiraled out of control. And then I had to have some hard thinking to myself, what am I going to do with this? This is bigger than me. And I really wrestled with that. But I ultimately decided, okay, I will start to charge for the tours so I can hire people and make this bigger than what I am.
And then, so that I didn't know that it was literally just you giving these tours.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people are like, well, do I turn this hobby into a business? That's like a tough thing. So when did you realize you could actually make some money with it? Like, were people willing to pay you like $100 a person? Like, what were those first couple of paying customers like?
It was so hard. I really wrestled with it because I didn't want to charge for something I love so much. So imagine something that you love and now people wanted to pay you for it. It's like, is that going to change everything? We had a huge waiting list at the time of people who wanted to go on the tours. And so the first little slippery slope was I would let people pay to skip the waiting list. And that was my way to test whether I could charge for it. And people were very willing to pay. And the funny thing was that the more they paid for it, the more they respected it. And that they actually took it much more seriously when they paid for it. Because otherwise, I think they thought it was a catch or something was up, right? They're like, why is this guy doing this for free? Which is kind of the story of my life. I've heard from other people that they're like, yeah, for the first few years I met you, like I didn't think that you were genuinely a nice person. I thought there was like some sort of a catch. Like
normally there is.
Right. Yeah. Like, why does this guy host these events? Why is he being so nice to me? Like, what's the catch eventually? And it was the same thing with the museum tours. People thought that there'd be a catch or something. So yeah, that was a slippery slope. I honestly lost a lot of sleep over that 1 or 2 weeks where I was wrestling with whether I would charge for the tours.
And then when it started going and you had like, I remember you said you employed like theater majors, not art history.
Yeah.
Because art history is like, oh, the texture of this thing is, and it's like boring as hell.
Yes.
Whereas theaters are like, someone got murdered by the Mona Lisa.
Yes.
And then you have to, it was almost like escape room combined with museum.
Yes. Dude,
right?
We did the craziest stuff. And even some of the things that we experimented with. But yeah, we would hire theater people, stand-up comedians, musicians. We did very weird stuff in the museum, hiring people not with a museum background, people that really came from all walks of life that were super engaging. And we would test, we would hire musicians to smuggle in their instruments. Dude, I remember we had a flutist who like had to like bring in his flute and like his jacket, and we'd have all these issues where it's like, the musician got stopped by security and like they seized his instrument. Like we have a tour in 45 minutes. What are we going to do? And we'd have to find all these instruments that could fit in like pockets and things like that. We'd bring in singers and just do like illegal concerts, like in the big rooms, and know that like, okay, it will take security 3 minutes to get here. And so she can start singing for like 2 minutes, and then security will come and warn us. And then we'll have another 2 minutes before the big security come. So we had all these cat and mouse games of doing things that really weren't illegal or harmful, but were like a little questionable, but made amazing experience for our customers.
And then at some point, I assume people could just go online and like buy a ticket.
That was the big transition, was when it shifted from not just my friends to whoever. We actually had a huge New York Times reporter who was going to secretly come on one of the tours and write about us for the New York Times. And I'm not sure if this would have changed my life or not, but I actually told him, like, don't do this. We're not ready for this. We don't want that. And I had to like shut the tours down that weekend. It was a huge drama. He was so pissed. But yeah, when we finally made the decision to change it from just being my friends and people who I knew, I really was worried that that would change a lot about the business. Realistically, it did change a lot about the business, not all for the better, but it allowed us to grow to a multi-million-dollar company and to serve so many more people.
And then how much did like an average ticket cost for this? Like if I just wanted to go to the Met in New York and,
The tickets were approximately $80 a piece. Where we made our money, what turned it into a multi-million-dollar business, was taking that $80 museum tour, where usually somebody buys 2, right, for them and a date, taking that and selling it to businesses and corporations as team building experiences. Now, instead of selling 2 tickets for $80 a piece, now I'm selling 30 tickets for a group of engineers from Google. And instead of $80, I can wrap a narrative about technology through time. And now it's a $200 ticket.
Ooh, interesting.
And so that was what we called health insurance money that allowed us to make money to really pay people fair wages and give them good benefits.
And then at the end, how many people were like working?
I think we had about 45 employees at like our very height.
Oh man. And then someone approached you to buy the company, and then
I sold the company in a really weird way to our then CEO and marketing director, and they bought the business from me in a seller finance transaction. It's a wild story. I've written about it on my blog. But they got to pay zero money down and made eventually an outcome that was really good for both of us. And they took the business to new places that I simply wasn't able to, and they just crushed it.
Now, when people are doing all this stuff for free, the reason I think people are like, hey, what's the catch over here? You're doing this awesome tour. You're doing these parties that you're known for around Austin and New York, and they're all free. And someone's like, there must be like a thing, like you're paying money and doing time and effort and stuff like that. Yeah. So I assume you have money coming from somewhere, like to live, like you live like a pretty, I wouldn't say extravagant, but you do like pretty cool stuff. I mean, you definitely have an income somewhere.
Yeah.
So these companies just like set you up from that and you like just live off of that, like you just like annuity kind of thing, or how does that work?
Sort of. For the museum thing, I still had my job. I was still working at the first few years I was working for my family business. And so during nights and weekends was when I worked to build my company. So I actually officially started my company in 2013. We sold the family business 2014, but I'd been working on doing tours for years before that. And so my thing that I always tell people is, look, start your business, your side hustle, whatever, on nights and weekends. You need to have your job. You need to be making money from some other place. Because if you start a business and you are so crunched on like making money from day one, then I don't know if you can build the best experience for your customers, if you'll have enough time to practice and figure out what people really want. So I did that for my museum tours. I still had my job, but on nights and weekends, this was like my hobby. And then I turned that hobby into a business.
Nice. And then I think the thing people most know you for, you have a book called A 2-Hour Cocktail Party.
Yes.
And you've done all sorts of like funny marketing things on this. But I think for a book, this has probably impacted more lives than most books. Because most books are like, I've written a book, and it's mostly like, here's how you write an email. And it does help like their online persona and online world. But yours is about in-person meetings and stuff. Can you explain what like the 2-Hour Cocktail Party is?
Yeah. So I wrote a book called The 2-Hour Cocktail Party, and it teaches people how to host their first house party, meetup, or networking event. And what was very important to me in launching that book was the result I wanted was for people to host their first event. And that's what I was going to track and be really mindful of. Because it's one thing to make a book and then sell a book and then for people to read a book or write a review. But could I get them to take action, to actually host a party? And so that's the one number that I check. And I actually have them send me selfies from their party. And I keep them all on my website. It's like a page I'm really proud of. I've spent a lot of money building. But yeah, the book shows people how to host an event with a step-by-step guide of everything they need to simply host a well-run event, because the bar for hosting a good event is so low. Most events, you just show up, you drink, and like hopefully you bump into somebody that you know. And I think that the best events are when you mix people together who don't know each other. And I found through hosting hundreds of my own events, a successful formula that helped make those to be very well-run so you look like an amazing host.
Is that the Nick formula?
That's the Nick formula, yeah.
Can you explain that real quick?
Yes, the Nick formula is N stands for name tags. I stands for introductions or icebreakers. C stands for cocktails or mocktails only, no dinner. It's not a dinner party, very important. NIC. And then the K stands for kick them out at the end. The party is only 2 hours long. You got to kick them out.
And how many people have thrown parties like with this formula?
So verified party hosts that we know, I think we have about 510 now. Verified means that they send me a selfie from the party with at least 15 people all wearing name tags at some sort of an event. I think there's probably more than 1,000 because I constantly meet people all the time. They're like, dude, I read your book. I hosted a party. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Like the book says multiple times, tell me when you host. I think it's weird for people to send an email to the author or to call them or something. But I have personally heard from over 500 now that have actually hosted the party, which is like, that was my goal.
Also, let me tell you why this is kind of important. So when you moved to Austin, I think within 2 months, you had more friends than like all of us combined. And we're like, what happened here?
Cool.
It's because you throw these little events. So Noah Kagan was actually very similar when he first moved to Austin like years ago. He would throw a no networking party and he would host at Liberty Bar on the east side, which at the time was like super divey. And he would say free beers from 4 to 7. Sorry, free Lone Star beers. So it's like a cheap beer.
Okay.
And the thing was, he'd host it on a day when they had dollar beer day. So on a Tuesday, Wednesday, how much do people drink? It's actually not all that much. And so just maybe a couple of people have a few beers here and there. His total tab would be like $90, $150. That's something manageable, right? And that's how he built his network originally. And you did that, and you just have this like gigantic network now. So big that I think you have 4 full-time assistants to manage like your personal life.
I have a lot of assistants.
Is that true? Is that 4?
I have 3. One is on maternity leave right now, but yeah, I guess I do have 4. Yeah.
Oh my God. So that is why you throw like these little cocktail parties. And also, I think what people like about these cocktail parties is like, one, it is weird for someone who's not very socially adept to show up to a party solo and like go up to random people who are like already talking to each other and be like, hey, I want to butt in your group. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
That's super difficult. So I think to counteract that, you do the introductions and icebreakers.
Yeah. So I want to be very clear that the type of party that I host and that I'm known for is a party where not everyone knows each other. And frankly, most people do not know each other. So my experience now, and these days what I spend a lot of time thinking about, is how to introduce new people that don't know each other. And I think that's the problem, is that as we get older, it is much harder to meet people. We're creatures of comfort. We keep the same routines. We hang out with the same friends. But I find that the biggest benefits come from knowing a lot of people, meeting new people, new opportunities, new relationships, new customers, clients, employees, all come from having a very wide network. And as we're digitally saturated all on our phone so much, just like the benefits of trade shows and conferences, going to little parties and gatherings really helps. And this always happens to even me, who I think I'm at the top of my game. I'll have an invite to something. I'll be like, oh, man, I don't want to go. It's like late in the day. I've had a hard day. I don't want to go to this. It takes too much work. I don't really feel like socializing. But I'll be like, no, I should go because I always meet somebody. And I drag myself to the event. And then sure enough, I'll have at least one interesting conversation where I'm like, dang, I am so freaking glad that I went to that. I am so glad I met at least one person and have one interesting conversation that I'm always happy that I did after that.
Well, the other thing is like sometimes people be like, well, I go to these events, but I didn't like meet any like people I hang out with. I'm like, but you have to go consistently. I think that's the trick. Because sometimes I'll talk to someone like 3 times before I really get to know them. And I see them at a party and I see them again. You kind of know each other a little deeper each time. And then you start to hang out. It's not like you just go to a party and like, I got 4 best friends. Like it never works like that.
Yeah.
I don't believe so. So it's like a consistent habit that people have. And you really created like, I mean, I know like Austin has like this reputation, like everyone knows each other. I think you have played a legit part in like that fabric of Austin.
I do see a lot of people hosting events using my formula here.
Yeah, also
in
just your own events. I'm one of my icebreakers at a party is like, do you know Nick Gray?
Really?
Yeah. And everyone knows you. Everyone at least tangentially knows you somehow. It's like I went to an event or I had a friend that went to an event, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is pretty neat.
One of the funny things for my book is that I have a shopping list of things that they need to have at their party for basic snacks. The reason I do that shopping list, I have a whole step-by-step guide of like, look, here's all the things you need to do on the day of your party. Because it's important to remember that my goal as a host is to give people a formula that is easily repeatable. Because I can write a book for the best dinner party you can ever host, and people will do that exactly once. They'll host it once. It's too stressful. They didn't get enough benefits. But the biggest benefits in life come from people who make hosting a habit. So I try to make a repeatable formula. Part of that repeatable formula is just making the snacks as easy as possible. Some of those snacks are like my favorite snacks in the whole world, right? Chips and guacamole, grapes, sodas, snacks, whatever. It is so weird that I go around the world now and I get to attend some of these parties that people host, and the layout of the snacks is the same at like every party, and it's all my favorite stuff. And I had this one moment where I was like on the road, I'm touring, it's like really stressful, and I felt like a celebrity who has like a rider because I show up to this party and there's all my favorite snacks like waiting for me with these people I don't know. And it was just one of these moments. I was like, damn, this is pretty cool.
I will say that is a big reason why a lot of people don't host, because they think they need to like put out a dinner, and they have to cook it themselves for some reason, which is really, really difficult. Because then you go in host mode, and I don't know about you, but if I have people over at my house, I'm like, is the trash taken out? Is the counter clean? Is there trash everywhere? I'm basically like the maid at the party.
Yeah,
because I want to make sure everyone's taken care of, and then I don't actually have any fun.
Yes.
So it's cool whenever there's just like a couple of like Costco waters out, a couple of Topo Chicos. and some chips.
It's
and you're
kind of
like,
simple.
That's it. Yeah.
My thing is, I would rather my guests leave the party hungry rather than bored. Okay? Because my friends are adults. They can feed themselves. They can order. They can grab food on the way home or beforehand. But meeting new people, many people are not good at that. And so that's what I see my role is. I think there's this traditional mentality that when you host, you have to feed people, especially in certain cultures. And I think, no, when you host people, you have to do the introductions, help them meet people and make those introductions. That's really what a good host is. I've been to too many parties where the spread and the food is amazing, but you don't meet anybody. I went to a party last Christmas and amazing crowd, incredible people. And I asked my date, I was like, is the host going to make a speech or like do something? She was like, make a speech? Like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, just like say like who's here or something. She's like, you're crazy. No, just go up and say hey to them yourself. And I was like, that's the problem.
Icebreakers and introductions, I think, are so important. And you do it in two ways. One, you do it beforehand. Actually, three ways. You do it beforehand. You send a list of everyone's Instagram and Twitter. And I love that because one, I can see who's going to be there. And even though I'm pretty good at like saying hello to people, it is nice to have some context of who someone is.
Yeah.
So if someone like also makes videos and is also a copywriter, like, I probably have something in common to talk to them about. It's nice to know that kind of stuff. And then when you get there, you do an introduction in the beginning of the party. So when it's like 5 people, then when it's 10, et cetera, and larger and larger and larger. And it's kind of cool that sometimes you could be like, oh, that person has something interesting I want to talk about. Or, oh, I didn't know that person works for that company. And it is kind of cool to have those intros. And then everyone gets talking. Whereas if you're just like, here's a bunch of people in a room, figure it out yourselves, dummies.
Yes,
like,
that's
it's
what most
really
parties
hard.
are. That's what most parties are, that it's left up to us to go up and be an extrovert and outgoing and ask people like, hey, who are you and what do you do? I try to get that just right out of the way by having everybody do a little bit of a roll call. And so now oh, that person does that. I want to go talk to them later.
I've been trying to plant seeds for my own wedding. I was just like, what if we just let Nick host an icebreaker? Because you have two sides that don't really know each other. And I'm like, both sides actually have really interesting friends. And I'm like, they would actually really like it there, but there's no way they're going to figure this out at a wedding.
Right.
Like someone works for this company or whatever. And so I've been planting the seeds. I'm like, what if we like during the welcome dinner, maybe a couple of little intros. It doesn't have to be all work-based or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it really does bring people together to just be like, oh, I didn't know that. And then you have something to talk to them about.
Yeah.
I think also when people are at a party and people are drinking, I think there's odd like male-female dynamics. Like you don't want to seem like you're hitting on someone, all that kind of stuff. And so people are more guarded. Whereas like if there is something actual to talk to you, hey, I wanted to talk to you about the company you work for, whatever. It's just a lot easier in.
Yeah. I think there's a balance to it as well because you can also listen to this and be like, oh, perfect. I'm going to have icebreaker cards out that I'll do for people and I'll leave these icebreaker cards. And those actually really don't work that well at a party. When you leave too much in the responsibility of your guests' hands, I find that they don't do it. It feels awkward. It feels forced. And so that's why I think it really is the host's role to bear the burden of that awkwardness, to be the champion of cringe. To say something like, look, we're going to do intros. I know that it feels awkward, but just bear with me. I promise you'll meet somebody new. And saying to people the why of why we do it. Saying like, look, I've met so many amazing people here in Austin. The reason I'm hosting this is to introduce you all. So we're going to do icebreakers that seem silly, that seem like they're from 5th grade. But the purpose is so you'll have an excuse to go up and say hey to somebody new. And so a lot of my book talks about the reasoning and the why of how to facilitate these intros and icebreakers.
So, I mean, a lot of people know you as like this guy on social media that I wouldn't call it trolling, but you have funny stuff and then funny experiments and things that you do.
Okay.
And like, I remember like I follow you, of course, and interacted with all your content and all the comments are like, I'm glad that you're doing, like, this is so refreshing to see. That's just not like all politics or something like that.
Yeah.
What social media platforms are you most posting on? What are your faves?
My 2 favorite ones, I probably do Twitter/X and Instagram. Those are my 2 primary platforms that I really spend the most time on.
And then you have do people know about the personal account, the private account?
I do have a private Twitter where I like think I kind of practice my writing and thinking about stuff there for a long time. And the reason I have a private Twitter, which I use much less now, but is that when I was running the flight business that worked with aviation, it was an extremely conservative industry. And there was no value to me getting canceled or saying something remotely controversial online, and the risk of getting that far outweighed any type of benefits because none of our customers were using this platform or none of them were online. And so because I lived a very private life in my 20s and my early 30s, I actually really didn't start to post on my public accounts until probably the past few years.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you basically make a lot of these kind of like, you just document your life, I would say.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then, for example, we could talk about one recent one that everyone was like glued to their seats with the Japanese date.
Yes.
That you did. Can you explain what you did, what the premise of that was? I don't even know if you meant for this to be a big thing.
I didn't mean for it to be a big thing. It blew up beyond my wildest expectations. It was probably the most popular thing I've ever written about. And it was the Tokyo blind date. I was at home on literally a Tuesday night bored, and I just like I couldn't sleep. I was getting ready to go to bed. And long story short, I wanted to go to Japan, but I didn't want to go back by myself. And I thought it would be fun or funny to go with a blind date. And so I simply put out a tweet that said, I'd love to go to Tokyo next weekend. Does anyone want to go with me on a blind date? You should have a passport. You should know how to ride a bicycle in a big city. And you should be mildly attracted to nerdy guys in glasses. And that was the gist of what I shared. I posted it, I let it rip, and I went to bed. And I woke up the next morning to see that it was going viral. And from there, it just turned into a whole storm. I think what captured people about it was the very raw, live nature of me sharing my feelings of being on this date and kind of falling in love with this person that I met along the way. It was so much better than I even wrote about. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, we were all glued. Everyone was talking about this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even people I didn't, they were just like, your friend, Nick Gray. I have like, like friends of friends who are reaching out being like, what's going on with the Tokyo date? Because I was getting, we're friends. So I was getting real updates like live that you can't like, post. And it was really fun for people to watch along Instagram and X. I guess both. You're kind of on both, right?
Yeah, mostly it was on Twitter. I mean, on Instagram, it was a little, got like 1,000 likes or something. On Twitter, it got 19 or 20 million impressions.
Holy crap.
I got requests from the BBC, from the Washington Post, from People magazine, all wanting to write stories about it, which I turned down, by the way. I didn't want to do any of those interviews. But it was an amazing experience. It was really cool.
Well, it was cool to watch it unfold because you were just like, "Hey, I'm taking a flight over there."
Yeah,
and you were on some sort of like business class or something like that. And I guess with Twitter, the cool thing is people can interact. It's not just a photo.
Yes.
Because I saw that photo on Instagram, and you're just like, "Cool."
Yes.
Like, what else do you do? There's no like conversation that happens after that.
Yeah.
Whereas at Twitter, people are like, wait, did you buy her a business class ticket? And
yes.
Like, no, not for the first.
Okay, to be clear, I flew over on commercial. I flew commercial as well. And I did have a lot of thoughts about, do I want to fly business? Does that mess with the incentives a little bit of like what's expected or what type of person I want to meet, for example? And on that specific example, I didn't want to meet somebody. I don't think I want to be with somebody in the end who's like, I'll only go on this if I can fly business.
Yeah.
But yes, there were a lot of choices and decisions, and it really was a great experience. Look, lately I have been working with writing, okay? So I've had some short form video wins, but frankly, those have been bombing for me lately. Mm-hmm. Recently, I've had some new ones go viral, and I can talk about that. But for the past probably year since my viral Waterpark video, that was my most popular video that I've ever made, I really haven't had any viral short form video. And so I've been doing more of the text posts. And this for me was really the highlight of all that work I've been doing, of it just crushing.
What do you mean text, but just like a photo and text, like on Twitter, that kind of thing, rather than a short form video?
Yeah, so I think not a lot of people are talking about this, but since Twitter changed to allow you to write longer form posts on text, the platform is extremely optimizing for time spent in post. Now, not just likes and retweets and comments, but actual time spent reading. And so that is, if somebody's watching this and looking for a takeaway, write longer text. Those longer text posts for me personally are crushing. They outperform the short stuff that I do 10-1. Mm-hmm. And I'm finding a lot of success in writing those. Now, you have to learn how to be a good writer. You have to be engaging. And that is a whole skill set in itself. But I've seen other people experimenting with it and seeing huge results.
Yeah. Yeah, if your social platforms, like, how do you tell if a post is good? There's like, computers are still iffy on saying like this is good or this is bad. So you just take social cues from humans. How long are they interacting with it? Are they clicking on a picture? Like one thing I've seen really popular right now that's like a little bit of a hack, but if you take a page like this and you write a bunch of text on it, take a photo of it, and then share it, what happens is everyone clicks the picture to read it because you can't read it like on your phone. So people click it and then they zoom in. And so X is like, oh, they're interacting with the photo.
Yes.
And so it goes, oh, people like this. People are spending more time on it. And in reality, I'm just like, I just literally can't read it.
Right.
And so a lot of those posts have been getting like more than they maybe should sometimes.
Super smart.
So that is a similar kind of social SEO hack that we're seeing.
That's smart.
With the longer stuff. So can you explain what the Waterpark thing to yourself was? Because this was like, you went mega viral on this one.
Yeah, 40 million views across all platforms for a short video.
And that's just on yours. Like, because then people rip it and showcase it and talk about it. And you have no idea about those tracks. So it must have been like 100 million total.
It was probably a bit, yeah. It was crazy. Like it had a life of its own. Here's one thing I'll say about that. So I'm going to speak about what that was, but ultimately my thinking on content has shifted around how do I truly create fans and get people in my world versus these short form bite-sized things where, as my friend Barron said, I'm just a busker for them. They see the content, they watch for 30 seconds, and then maybe they like it, but they swipe and they move on. I'm much more interested now in videos that get shared and videos that get those comments. So on my YouTube, for example, I don't look at views, I don't look at subs, I look at how many comments am I getting. And that for me is the form of engagement. By the way, if you're watching this right now and you're watching on YouTube, will you leave a comment and say hello? I promise that I'm going to look at all of them. And tell me, because I'm curious, what has been the most interesting thing for you? What would you like me and Neville to talk about again? Please leave a comment and we'll say, hey, it'll be nice to meet you there.
Leave a comment. With Nick. Yeah.
Yeah, please, right?
Nice. I never asked people to leave comments on this. I probably should.
Yeah. It's nice to do that.
Yeah.
So what was the water park stunt? I went to a water park. I figured out there's a water park that's 30 minutes north here that I love to go to. You came to my birthday when I rented it out. I paid many thousands of dollars to rent it out for all my friends. But I said, why do I just have to go there when I rent it out? I think I could probably go on weird days at like early in the morning when nobody will be there. And so I looked at my calendar when school started and I said, okay, school starts here. Probably nobody's going to be going to the water park this weekend when school starts. And it's like a bumper time when families have already done their vacations, but not done the next one. And so I planned out a couple of these weird days. And sure enough, I went there on this one morning. It was like a Wednesday morning or Tuesday morning and nobody was there. I literally had the whole place to myself. It's like kind of eerie, right? I'm walking in this empty water park.
And it's big. It's like the biggest in North America. And it's indoor. So like the ceilings are like cavernous. This place has like its own climate. It's huge.
It felt like a zombie apocalypse sort of feeling, right? And all these like lifeguards are just standing there and they're just like looking at me. And I'm like, can I ride? They're like, yeah. And so I'm just like back to back, ripping the rides, just like having the time of my life. The funny thing about that video was that I didn't want to do the video. I didn't even think about doing the video until I was literally walking out to my car. I had actually left the water park, but I remembered that I'd made a challenge to myself to do a video a day. I said, I got to do my video. And so I went back. I was like, all right, this will be a good thing to do a video on. And I actually went back into the water park at that time. And that's when I very quickly filmed some video clips and boom, boom, boom. I just filmed. I didn't even know that this would be big. And I put something together. I could only do that video because I'd been doing that one video a day challenge that gave me some of the reference experiences to be ready when the time was right to strike this incredible moment.
I remember, I think one of the reasons you talked about comments, the comments on this one were unbelievable. These were the funniest things. And one, a lot of them were mean, right?
Some of them were a little mean.
And I think our whole friend group does internet stuff. We know that the more viral a post goes, the dumber the comments.
Yeah.
Because like if it's just your friends seeing it, they're like, oh my God, this is so cool. How fun. Yeah. Whereas if it's a random person, they're like, this dude's creepy as hell. That's why there's no kids over there. Like they just leave like mean comments.
Yes.
And you play into it.
Yeah, I love
so well. What do you so if someone leaves a mean comment, is there like a trick you do?
So I actually look for the comments. I mean, it's really sad to say, but I need those bad comments to really encourage the virality of it. I'll give you one example. about a few weeks ago, I was over in Dadar in India, in Mumbai, and I had this breakfast there, these things called sabudana vada, which are a typical Maharashtrian breakfast food. And I called them Indian donuts, okay? Because I needed some easy point of accessibility, some sort of a clickbait. Indian people got so mad about this. They're like, to call it a vada, don't call it a donut. You know, they're getting so mad about this. I'm like, people don't know what vada is over in America. We have no clue what that is. Donut was easier.
I'm Indian and I don't even know what it is.
Right? And so by calling it a donut, it both made it more accessible to my American viewers and pissed off a lot of Indians. If I would not have called that clip, by the way, has 1.4 million views now, right? If I would not have called it that, it wouldn't have got all the engagement. And that's what you need for better or for worse is this engagement.
Well, I think you're also brilliant about it because people will post like a snarky comment. And like, obviously someone doesn't know you, your post is going viral.
Yeah.
Everyone else is saying like funny things. You'll kill them with kindness, I think.
Yeah.
And you'll be like, ha, 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 what a funny joke.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fun to read their replies. They're like, sorry, man, I didn't mean that.
Yes.
This is really cool. I just never, I didn't think you'd actually respond.
That happens way more often than people think. I never get negative or try to fight with people. Someone once told me, you generally shouldn't fight with people who have less followers than you have. And so I'll look to see, right? If somebody's making a critique or a burn against me and they have no followers or no experience, then I will assume the best, that they're just trying to leave a comment or they're thinking through their stuff, and I'll try to reply sort of positively. I never try to really punch down. I'm sure that I probably have, but I try not to.
Yeah, I don't think you do. I think you actually respond really kindly and you're just like, ha ha ha, I guess I deserve that or something like that. And then people always like apologize.
Yeah, it's
like
wild.
That. Or other people will kick in to apologize, be like, hey, he's just showing that you could go to this thing. Like,
right.
And then secretly behind the scenes, like all the counts are going up.
It's crazy.
More comments, more engagement, more views, etc. So you still get boosted higher.
For the Waterpark video, I think it went viral because everybody kind of wants that experience of having a water park all to yourself. It's almost like a childhood dream that like, wow, what if I had this whole water park all to myself? When that video went viral, I really thought, I was like, okay, how can I do more of this? Because it is the biggest rush in the world. Mm-hmm. The number of new followers that I was getting, the number of engagements. If you've never gone viral before, you can't imagine. But I mean, you open your phone and it's just like, you cannot even imagine what the comments and it really feels. I say going viral is kind of like what it's like for your birthday to be every single day of your life. Because for many people, their birthday, they're getting text messages from friends, comments, people are reaching out, wishing them happy birthday. It's this very positive thing. That's kind of like what going viral is like when your mentions and your comments are blowing up. I think that video went viral because everybody wanted that experience of going to something, having it all to themselves. And I got some advice from other content creators. They said, well, if you want to do this more, this is now what you do. You go to stuff and have it all to yourself. You go to museums, you go to Six Flags, go to Disney World. If you want that, you need to now put the work in to lean into that formula. And ultimately, I wasn't willing to put that work in. I wasn't willing to really put that work in to make that my thing. But that would be my advice for somebody, that if you have a clip that goes viral, do more of that. Like, don't try to strike lightning twice. Like, just lean into that and play it out more.
I've also heard that one of the secret things for any algo is when you share it within the platform. So like, I'll see something like that and I'll share it with like, so if I see some baby thing, I'll send it to Sam and Sarah and be like, hey, you should do this with your baby. And Instagram knows like I clicked share and sent it to 2 people within, and they're like, this must be a good video. He didn't comment because I don't like comment on stuff like that usually. But I shared it, and that's like worth 10 points versus 1 comment point.
Shares are huge. And in order for people to share it, you have to be adding value. And so I've noticed that, by the way, have you noticed this, that the algorithms really changed for short form video? We used to see a lot of short form video that would use emojis in the captions, and that they would try to hook you right at the beginning. Here's the 3 things that you need to know how to go viral on the internet. Like, I feel like the algo shifted a little bit, where now it's not a hook like that, but instead it's like, what's up, you guys? Like, I had a video go viral, and I guess I learned, 2 or 3 things about how to go viral. And I'll tell you them, but God, I had this one, right? It's these longer storytelling things that get people, it's slowing down the video. And we've seen Mr. Beast even say that he's even changing a lot of his YouTube videos to slow down. People are slowing it down now. I think that I've changed that way as well.
You definitely see trends. Like there was this trend where you have to hook them for the first 30 seconds or minute. So every YouTube video was like, the thing that you got to do is, and after this, and it's just like this long intro, and you're just like, shut up. Like you see, the first couple ones always work.
Yeah.
But then you see it 500 times, and you're like, just get to the thing. Like I don't need all this jazz. And then what happens is I think it's almost a bait and switch. Because people would hire editors specifically for that first minute.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time, it's just me and you talking.
Yeah.
On like a slow form interview, and you're like, what was all that? Yeah. Like, what was all that stuff in the beginning? Like the whole video is like totally different than what you portrayed it to be.
Here's a business idea that I have for somebody. You need to create a online thing that will let you dump a video clip in and remove the captions from the video. Because right now, you and I are probably putting our short form out there with baked in graphics as the captions. I think that 1, 2, 3, 4 years from now, that is going to look so dated, and it's going to really date itself and make this video that we won't be able to use. And so I think somebody could do well by using sort of AI or whatever to just remove those captions from the video, because I think we're going to want these video clips in the future without those captions baked in.
Yeah. I think if you make it with like Descript and stuff like that, you still have your originals. But yeah, you're right. That is like a lot. Because we try to post like a clip a day. So now at this point, we have like, I don't know, 500 clips or something like that. So to go back and update those would definitely be really hard. And so posting on social, I mean, we've grown up when like you posted on blog posts. That was like our social media back in the day.
Yeah.
Like a lot of my friends, we met through our blogs. That was like social media at the time. And social platforms like Twitter, Facebook were considered like, they were jokes. It was like a joke. Like you would even say, it's like, oh, what am I, like a 16-year-old girl posting about her breakfast?
Yeah.
Like, that was like the common joke of what people use social media for. Now it's kind of like, everyone's building like a personal brand. Every CEO, you got Elon Musk, you got everyone trying to follow him, trying to build like a personal following. Are there any like benefits you see to having like more followers? Like as you've grown a little bit more popular, any benefits to having like a big social presence that you've seen?
I'll talk about the negatives, which is that if you don't have a social presence, at least for me, I just don't think about you. And I don't know if that's the same with you, but we just don't hear from those friends. You know, those friends, those acquaintances, that they're no longer top of mind.
Yeah, like, I don't use social media, and you're like, well, I don't even know if you have kids or not now.
Right. Yeah, you just have no clue kind of what's going on. And so I think it is table stakes if you want to be known that you have to be sharing stuff online. That's the negative, I guess, when I talk to people who don't have a social. The positive, it's just, I mean, it's huge. I think you know these benefits. You show up and people know you. It is a bit of a parasocial relationship, which is a larger, weirder kind of discussion. But yeah, there's massive benefits. I think a lot of other people have spoken about those benefits. Here's the actionable piece of advice that I would have for people. If you don't know where to start, I would suggest that you consider sending out an annual friends newsletter that you can send to 50, 60 of your friends. Just put them on BCC to tell them kind of what's up in your life. The important thing is you need to add value. So don't just be like, Dear Diary, here's what I'm thinking. Try to add value. And an easy way to add value, say, hey, here's 3 things I read over the last year. Here's 3 good things I watched over the last year. Here's 3 great songs I'm loving right now. And here's 3 cool family photos. Just send that out to people and you will be shocked. Even if they didn't ask to subscribe or something, it's going to keep you top of mind on people's radar. The important thing, though, is to add value and not just make it about you. The worst time, by the way, to send this is when you need a job. Right? The worst time is to send a message. I'd be like, hey, everybody, I just got fired. You haven't heard from me in a long time, but like, I just want to let you know I'm looking for a job, right? What a terrible thing to do. Make the investment in your network before you need it.
It is kind of a thing where it's just like, it used to be like you're trying to show off with social media. Now it's almost like, I don't think you have to, but you're right. You just kind of forget about people. So for example, I also log on to Facebook occasionally and I have all my friends from college, like roommates and stuff, not roommates, but like people that lived on my floor in freshman year of college that I barely even remember their names anymore. But I know that they have kids and that they live in Wyoming with their spouse and they live on a lake and they go boating all the time.
Yeah.
Because you just see the updates.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, I don't know what that means, but I do know about their lives because they just post on social media a little bit. So I do think it's more important. And I actually feel bad whenever I do really cool stuff and just like, sometimes just so swept up in the whole like thing and you want to be present. You don't want to be on your phone all day. Like I kind of regret sometimes when I don't post on social media almost.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I want to remember this, even just through my archives on Instagram or Twitter or whatever, just so I can remember it.
It's helpful to remember for us. Can you talk about, you have for a long time posted your monthly goals online.
Mm-hmm.
Do you still do that? Have you found benefit to it? Have you heard from people that like to read those?
I think it's mainly for me, and it's like I put it out, so I want to do it. Now, I'm not saying I finish all of them each time. I usually finish I only do about 3 goals per month. I'll usually finish 2 out of 3, and one will like carry over to the next month. So I've been writing a book, and that one's carried over for maybe like 8 months. You know, that kind of thing. But for the most part, just telling people I'm going to do something. I think people are paying attention to me. They're not, but I think they are, and therefore I do it. So I have to constantly fool myself into doing those things. And so it's a little bit of a, just like a accountability thing for me. I don't want to look like I didn't do that. So if someone says, hey, did you finish that thing you were talking about or start that podcast you were going to do? I think other people are looking at it. So therefore I do it. So I think it's helpful for me to post stuff publicly. There's all sorts of things of like, don't post stuff publicly, do post stuff. I'm just like, I don't know, whatever. Like for me, it works. So I find if I post something that I'm going to do it, I feel like I want to do it and I feel obligated to do it.
You do a really good job of posting for accountability, and you do this thing where you'll just show people yourself working to just hold yourself accountable to work. And it can be very hard to just work at home and stay focused. And you'll just do a live video or a screen share. And I think it helps you to be more productive, and people get value out of it as well, seeing you work.
They get some, I guess. I mean, I used to do it. I do it on Facebook, and because they're just the easiest one to go live with, and you can interact with them. And I'll just like literally me sharing my screen, just like writing an email or something like that.
That's pretty
cool. And my
cool.
friends will chime in. It's kind of funny, just friends out of the blue, because once again, Facebook, you've had it for so long. Friends you normally don't follow anywhere else will be like, what are you doing? Just working? What is this? And I title it, This is Boring, Do Not Watch.
Oh, really?
Me working. And sometimes there'll be like 18 people watching. Sometimes there'll be literally 0. And just or like the average would be like 3 or 4. But because I think they're watching, I'm like, I don't want to be goofing off on Reddit. And so I think for me, the public accountability thing has been very, very helpful for me to do that. There's a thing called caveday.org.
Yes, I know.
Not affiliated with it, just like cool thing. And you can go co-work like this with other people. You don't necessarily share your screen, but what happens is every session, they have them like starting every hour or so, and you enter a cave. And there's like a facilitator who does like a quick exercise, and you all do like this thunderclap thing, like you go like this and clap together, and you see all 50 people on the Zoom call doing it. And then you're like, okay, start working. And I'll hop on those from time to time when I'm being lazy and just like, eliminate all my work. And that'll be a nice thing where it's like co-working. Okay. And it's with like the social pressure of other people also working makes you do more work.
What's the name of the group? Yes, I love the Cave Day guys. I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. You are very good at making yourself useful. You've mentioned that a couple times. I actually had that, making yourself useful advice. Is that like a thing you strive for, like the usefulness?
Yeah. And trying to add value before I need it. And so I think that, like I mentioned about sending a friend's newsletter before you need a new job, making these investments before you need anything, I'm constantly thinking, how can I add value to this interaction? And yeah, that's something I think a lot about.
Here's a specific case study. We mentioned this. We all went to HubSpot Inbound 2023 or something, and our friend Sam was speaking, and he asked me to moderate the thing. So I was going to be on stage, and then we were just like, we should invite Nick. I think he just had another thing. We're like, let's invite Nick. He'd be fun. And I think I don't know how to say this, but like knowing your role, I think is very important for people, and being very self-aware of what's happening here. And so even me, like Sam invited me to speak on this giant stage, that gives me some clout too. I understand that he totally hooked that up, right? And just by the nature of being a friend, I got this opportunity. And so for me, I was just like, I need to make this good for him. Like I need to show appreciation for someone who did something nice to me. And I think you're the same way. And you went to this and you were like, his body man, I guess you would call it. Is that what you call it? Is that a real term? Body man?
Yeah.
And basically like, how would you describe your role? What did you think your role was at that?
My role was so for certain famous people that have a lot of attention, and Sam, in this instance, had a lot of fans and listeners of his podcast, One small example is he really can't walk around the trade show hall because he's going to get stopped all the time. Now he can, but Sam will be the first to say he gets a little bit of social anxiety. Something simple as him going to the bathroom. He really can't just walk to the bathroom by himself. People will stop him. They'll literally come pee next to him. It's like these like strange kind of interactions. And so just being a body man, standing, walking by, helping him walk through spaces. One common thing that I see that happens to my famous friends is after they speak on stage, they'll have a huge line of people that are wanting to talk to them. And all my friends are incredibly nice. And if you leave it up to them, they will talk and talk and talk. They won't cut the conversations off. And they'll eventually get so drained and de-energized that they just have to call it a wrap and just leave all these people standing in line. One simple thing that I will do is just help move that line along, help people snap photos, move the line along so that my friends can maintain their energy and hopefully do more of these live experiences. Because what happens with someone like Sam is they'll do that, and then what does Sam say? I'm never doing that again. That's so hard on them, right? Because some of these people, they do really well in front of the camera, in front of the screen, hosting a podcast, but live events are hard. And so I see it just like the host who bears the burden of awkwardness. I bear that burden of awkwardness of speaking up, of saying, hey guys, let's move the line along. What's up? You guys want a photo real quick? We know that Sam loves to drink seltzer water, right? And so making his life easier, I would have seltzers in my backpack all the time. He loves diet sodas. I have those things available. Just like you, trying to make that experience a little bit better.
But I think that it's like usefulness is very underrated. I think people, sometimes they think they're like, I'm better than like getting my friend a drink or something like that. Whereas you're happy to do it. And therefore it's just like, whenever we think of like going to a conference, I'm like, I hope Nick comes. Like not because like you're useful, but just because like, I don't know, you just like know the ropes and like, oh, you also organized that trip to like the JFK library.
Yes.
And we did like this whirlwind thing. We only had like a few hours before the airport or whatever. And we got to do this and it was really cool. And it was really, there was like some really fun moments we had in there.
Yes.
Sam made some dumb comment to the lady at the front, making fun of JFK, and like she just death stared him.
It's like totally, yeah, it was very.
But I remember that as being like a fun adventure that like you facilitated, and that like me and Sam would have never even thought of like visiting a museum, like, like in the hour before we were leaving to the airport or something like that.
Yeah, and I think we nailed it. The thing I was most proud about was we were like door to door from our hotels in like an hour and a half. We got that experience in a micro thing.
Oh, you had even like planned. You were like, we were walking around the hotel, and you would have your phone. You were like, "Hey, get an Uber for this."
Yeah,
we're like, "What are you mumbling?" And apparently, you leave voice notes to your assistants to like order you an Uber at the exact time that we're leaving or something like that.
Yeah. It was all like planned and perfect. It was nice
because we were on a really tight schedule, and we still and then you did a fun thing. I guess it's from your MuseumHack days, where before we walked around the museum and got caught in exhibits, you were like, okay, we're going to walk around, do not stop. And we walked around the entire like giant museum in like 2 minutes, like just rapid. And then we're like, now we know what to see.
Yes.
It's almost like reading the content chapters of a book first to see like what's going to be the good stuff.
Exactly.
I remember thinking like, what a brilliant little idea that was.
It's one of my favorite hacks, which is how to visit a museum. I made a video about this that we'll link in the show notes. But it's essentially saying, like you said, read the table of contents before you read the book. Same thing at a museum, walk the whole floor plan first, and now you can go back and spend time at the things that you truly like and love. Someone did this to me. They reached out to me wanting to get a meeting, and a lot of people will reach out for a meeting. I don't do those really that much anymore. But this kid, he was like a college kid or a recent grad, and he said, hey, saw that you launched your book. One of my best friends launched his book. He has over 10,000 reviews. I have a bunch of advice that I think will help you to get more reviews. Here's my thoughts and suggestions. I was like, holy cow, dude, thank you so much. This is awesome. He was coming to Austin several weeks later. He didn't mention that at the time. Then 2 weeks later, he follows up. He said, hey, I'll be in Austin in 2 weeks. I saw now that you're doing short form video. I think I have some ideas that would really help you make your clips go more viral. So of course, I'm like, oh my gosh, of course, dude, let's hang out when you're in town. I'd love to hear these ideas. At the end of the day, most people just have their own self-interest in mind. And to the extent that you can help them first and foremost with their self-interest, I think they'll be more receptive to meeting or helping you out with something.
Yeah, being helpful is, I think it's so important also just for your mental well-being. Like people like if you just had nothing to do all day, you just feel like a piece of crap. Like you have to have like some purpose. For me, here's small examples of it. If I'm at a party, I'm a little bit of a neat freak and I don't mind cleaning up. And I get a weird sense of satisfaction from it, not only internally, but also like, I feel like if this is a group of my friends or I'm at a party, I'm at least useful by like cleaning this up and making this space nice.
Yeah.
And I know most people don't like cleaning up, and I don't mind it. And so a lot of times I'll just kind of like take some cans off the counter, you know, like people crush their cans and just put it wherever they can't find the garbage, whatever.
Yeah.
I'll just kind of like throw that out. Whenever I use the restroom at almost every place I go, I swear to God, if there's like a piece of paper just hanging out on the counter, I'll like wipe my hands and then like throw it away all.
Yes.
Just like, I'm like, I was a value add to this place. Like Neville was here and this place is better.
Yes.
I don't know if that's really true or if anyone notices, but to me, I get this weird sense of satisfaction out there. And I've seen you do this consistently with things where like you're at a party and add so much value, or we'll be at a party and you'll be like, hey, should I just host a icebreaker? Or you'll randomly bust out name tags and like just make the party more interesting and facilitate more stuff. And that's why like people like having you around, I guess.
Yeah.
Like not just because you're useful, but you sure have displayed that in the past. And therefore you're like, yeah, let's invite Nick. He's a value add to this.
Yeah, I think that has helped me build relationships with some really interesting people who it's hard to build relationships with. One thing I got to give you credit for that I learned from you that you do so well, and I've said it a bunch, but I want to say it again, is you do a really good job of taking photos at the party itself. And the host never remembers to take pictures. And you have not just done this like a couple times, but you do it every single time. Within an hour of you leaving the event, I'll get a text from you with photos from my own party. And I can tell you as a host how rarely that happens. Having hosted hundreds of parties, nobody follows up with great photos from the party. Not even great photos, but just photos. Nobody does photos even. And you always do it, and it is a very high value add. So if somebody's listening and wants to know, look, what are some easy things that I can do? The advice that I would say is when you go to a party, take some pictures of the host of the party, because the host is not thinking about this. They're too busy. Take photos and make the host look good. That is an easy way with your phone that costs you nothing that you can stand out and make an impact.
Addition to that, one, I always like taking photos. It's like my digital memory. I just forget like what I did. And so that's nice. But the other thing is, if they're singing happy birthday, there's like 50 phones out.
Yeah.
A lot of times I won't even take it because I'm like, well, there's like 9 angles and everyone's phone is already awesome. This is great videos already. What I do is like beforehand, like when they have like their, especially if it's like someone prepared food.
Yeah.
A lot of times they're very like proud of the food. They forget to take a photo.
Yes.
I've got those photos on there. And get this, I got the photos with the host like preparing.
Yes.
Because if the host takes it, it's like a picture of a tray.
Yes.
Who gives a shit?
Yes.
But it's what you preparing the tray and it looks cool, or I take like cinematic mode video. That's another thing people are like, whoa.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, how hard was that for me? Nothing. I didn't do anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's huge. Another key advice is if you are hosting a dinner party or you want to take a group photo, take it before the food is eaten. Many people wait till the end of a dinner to take a group photo when people are tired, sleepy, they've been drinking, their faces sagging. And what's the table? It's filled with these dirty plates, right? If you're going to take a group photo at a party or an event, take it before you eat the food. When the food has just been served, that's when it really looks the best.
And so I actually don't do this with you that much because I know you know how to edit photos really well. And we go to enough events all the time. I don't have to do this every time. But for people I go to like a one-off event, I'll edit a few photos. And it's on the iPhone editing is like so easy, so good. And there's little things like, for example, straightening out a picture.
Yeah.
Like if I took a picture right now, there's like a wall and stuff like that around us. Like this part looks pretty, but the rest is like whatever.
Yeah.
Crop that out.
Yeah.
And just make it look. And then just like if it's tilted, make it straight.
Yes.
And then I adjust the vibrancy a little bit. I like poppy, like color images. Not everyone does, but I do.
Yes.
And so I adjust the vibrancy a little bit and then I send it to them. And a lot of times people are like, how do you take such great photos? I'm like, the actual photo is pretty whatever.
Right.
Just edit it.
Yeah.
And I'll do a couple of those, especially of like the really good ones. Like, you know, sometimes there's a nice money shot where you're like, that's a good photo. And so I'll send those and they're always like very appreciative. And it's like, it's totally free and just happens to be something I do well, which is like, I like taking photos. And before everyone had phones, I literally would carry a digital camera everywhere.
Nice.
100% of the time with me. I had my phone, my like Nokia phone, my Canon ELPH camera in my pocket at all times. So it's just something that was unique to me. And also just these memories are very important. People make fun of like, oh, doing it for the gram. It's just like, well, I forget everything, but my phone doesn't forget anything that I take a picture of. And later I look back and I'm like, holy shit, this is my life.
Yeah.
My photo roll on my phone is my life.
Yeah.
Not my brain.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember any of this shit.
Yes.
So I think it's very important. Nice little value add.
Heck yeah.
Where can people find you?
Find me online. I'm at Nick Gray News. Say hey on Twitter, but say hey in the comments if you're watching this video, if you've seen this as a short reel. But I'm at Nick Gray News, and then I still have a blog that I still do, and it's a labor of love for me. And you can find that at www.nickgray.net.
We all have blogs, and it's like so hard to keep it up because social media is such a good blog on its own that we're like, why have it live on its own? But it is worth it to put stuff on your blog.
Yeah.
Go to Nick Gray. He's such an awesome follow across everything, Instagram and X particularly. Dude, thanks so much. Appreciate it,
Neville.
man.
This was great.
Bye.
Bye, guys.